The morning began like any other for most people on Earth, but that peace ended in an instant when the sky over major cities turned dark. Not because of clouds or storms, but because something enormous was blotting out the sun. At first, people thought it was some strange eclipse, but then shapes began to form in the light above. Massive objects, bigger than any building, appeared in the atmosphere, and they were moving. They were ships, alien ships, hundreds of them, all sharp edges and glowing engines, their metal skins catching the sunlight in flashes of silver and black. In New York, traffic stopped as drivers stepped out of their cars to stare up at the sky. In Tokyo, trains halted and passengers rushed to the windows. In Paris, the bells of old churches rang not for a holiday but an alarm. The ships were too big, too many. They moved in perfect formation, their size so massive that entire city blocks could fit inside them. These were not scouts or traders. These were warships. And they had come without warning, inside the White House in Washington. President Claire Benson was already moving fast. Her face was pale, but her voice was firm. She ordered her security team to connect her to the top military leaders at once. The Situation Room filled quickly with the highest-ranking officers of the United States. Maps and radar displays covered the walls, glowing red with enemy positions. Admiral Jack Carter, head of the Space Defense Fleet, entered the room, his expression calm but his eyes sharp. He had seen war before, but nothing like this. Reports were pouring in from satellites and space stations. Orbital sensors showed thousands of ships forming a giant ring around Earth. They were not hiding. They wanted to be seen. They wanted everyone on the planet to know that they had arrived. Carter watched the feeds in silence, his jaw tightening as he saw the blockade forming in space. The alien ships were positioned in such a way that no human craft could escape the planet. They were cutting Earth off completely. Communications officers picked up a signal. The alien language was strange, deep, and filled with sharp sounds. But the translator worked quickly. The message was short and cold. Surrender your world, or be destroyed. There was no introduction, no demand for negotiation, just a statement of dominance. The room went quiet. No one needed to explain. What this meant, the invaders believed Earth had no choice. In cities all over the planet, panic spread like fire. People grabbed their children and ran for shelter. Soldiers scrambled into defensive positions. Air raid sirens wailed for the first time in decades. In the skies, human fighter jets took off, not to fight directly. They could not match the power of those massive alien ships. But to protect important targets on the ground, the world was holding its breath. Admiral Carter turned to the President. Madam President, we need to mobilize all assets immediately. Every defense station, every ship we have. President Benson nodded without hesitation. She was not the type to bow to threats. Her voice was steady when she spoke. They want us to surrender, but they are going to see what humanity does when it is cornered. Orders were sent to the United Earth Defense Command, in orbit. The few human stations armed with railguns and missile systems began to power up. On Earth's surface, bases loaded their heavy artillery. Submarines in deep oceans received instructions to move into attack positions. The scale of the response was massive, but still, everyone knew the truth: human forces were heavily outnumbered and outgunned. At the same time, far above, the alien fleet was not idle. Smaller ships broke away from the main formation, positioning themselves in low orbit, clearly preparing for a strike from their size and shape. Carter guessed they were troop carriers and bombardment vessels. They were going to hit hard and fast, overwhelm the planet in one decisive move. In the control center aboard the United States flagship, the USS Liberty, Captain Nathan Drake received the first direct orders from command. The Liberty was to remain on high alert and prepare for immediate engagement on the bridge crew. Members moved quickly between stations, their voices tense but controlled. Screens showed the alien armada in stunning detail, their weapon systems glowing like molten fire along their hulls. Meanwhile, in small towns and rural areas far from the major cities, people looked to the sky with fear and confusion. For many, this was the first time they truly realized humanity was not alone in the universe. Children asked their parents what was happening, and parents had no answers. Radio stations filled the air with news updates, their announcers' voices shaking, as they reported the same impossible Cytalian warships, countless in number, hovering above the Earth. The tension was heavy, almost physical. Every second felt like an hour. Everyone knew that the first shot, once fired, would change everything forever. And deep down, some feared that once the battle began, there would be nothing left to save. Back in the Situation Room, Admiral Carter's mind raced. He thought of the decades spent building Earth's defenses, of the secret projects buried deep in hidden bases. He knew that if they were going to survive, they would have to use every advantage they had. But he also knew that revealing those secrets too early might give the enemy a chance to adapt. Timing would be everything. The alien fleet continued its slow, deliberate movements. As if certain of its victory, their massive ships blocked out stars, turning space into a black wall of metal. The message had been clear: submit or die. Carter, Benson, and the rest of humanity had no intention of kneeling. Somewhere in the back of every soldier's mind was the same thought: the Armada may have come here expecting a quick surrender. But they had no idea who they were dealing with. They had no idea that Earth, despite its smaller size and younger civilizations compared to the galactic empires, was capable of striking back harder than anyone imagined. And so, as the alien ships took their positions and the humans readied their defenses, the first chapter of the battle for Earth was about to begin. A battle that would either be the end of humanity or the moment the galaxy learned to fear the name of Earth forever. The first attack came without a warning, a sudden burst of light in the sky that was brighter than the sun for a brief second. Then the sound followed, a deep, bone-shaking rumble that rolled through the air like thunder from another world. The Imperial Armada had fired its opening strike, and its target was clear Earth's orbital defense stations, one by one. The massive space platforms that floated high above the planet's surface erupted into fireballs, their fragments spinning down through the atmosphere like burning meteors. On the bridge of the USS Liberty, Captain Nathan Drake stood gripping the railing, his jaw tight. The screens before him showed the destruction in painful detail. Lieutenant Aaron Sullivan, the ship's tactical officer, kept her eyes locked on her console, tracking enemy movements with precision. Her voice was calm but fast. 3 stations gone. 2 more heavily damaged. They're targeting our high-orbit infrastructure first, she reported. The logic was obvious: destroy Earth size and guns in space, and the planet would be blind and defenseless. The Liberty's crew moved quickly, every officer knowing that hesitation could cost lives. Captain Drake gave the order to bring all weapon systems online. The ship's railguns hummed as they powered up, missile silos unlocked, and shield generators surged with energy. The Liberty was one of the most advanced human warships ever built. But compared to the sheer size of the Armada, it felt like a single wolf standing before a pack of monsters. Admiral Jack Carter's voice came through the comms from Fleet Command. Liberty, you're our spearhead. Intercept enemy vanguard units before they reach low orbit. Drake acknowledged without hesitation. His crew knew the odds, but there was no hesitation. No one spoke of retreat. Humanity had been caught off guard, but it would not bow. In space, the alien vanguard ships moved like predators, their hulls alive with shifting patterns of alien symbols that glowed red in the darkness. They fired in perfect unison, coordinated in a way that spoke of centuries of war experience. Yet, despite their terrifying display, the Liberty dove straight into their path, its thrusters flaring blue as it accelerated. Fighter squadrons launched from the Liberty's hangar. Small but fast craft piloted by some of humanity's best. Commander Ryan O'Neill led the formation, his voice crisp over the radio. Keep your speed up, break their targeting locks, hit them where it hurts. The fighters darted forward like a swarm of hornets, weaving between streams of plasma fire on the tactical screens. Lieutenant Sullivan saw the alien formations shifting. To meet the human advance, they're adjusting their formation to box us in, she said quickly. Captain Drake's eyes narrowed. Not if we move first, he ordered a hygiene maneuver. The Liberty rolling sharply and diving beneath the enemy's firing line. The sudden shift put them on the flank of the alien ships. From this angle, humanity's weapons could hit weak points the Armada wasn't guarding. The Liberty's railguns fired, their magnetic projectiles screaming through space faster than the speed of sound. Each impact punched through alien armor with devastating force. One Vanguard cruiser split apart in a spray of molten metal. The aliens answered instantly, there. Return fire hammering against the Liberty's shields. The bridge shook under the impact, sparks leaping from consoles as energy levels dropped. Shields at 73%. Sullivan reported, but her voice carried a spark of determination. They were taking hits, yes, but they were still in the fight, on the ground. Civilians watching from telescopes and news broadcasts saw flashes of light high above the atmosphere. They didn't know the details, but they knew their defenders were fighting. The Liberty became a symbol in that moment. The single name repeated in every urgent broadcast, the ship standing between Earth and the invaders. Back in orbit, the battle raged on. Human fighters strafed the alien ships. Targeting weapon arrays and exposed engine ports, O'Neill's squadron scored several clean hits. Forcing 2 more Vanguard vessels to fall back, they're not invincible. He said over the comms, we just have to hit them harder, as the Liberty and her fighters held the line deep under the Nevada desert. Another plan was already being set into motion. One the aliens had no idea existed, but for now, in the cold black of space. Captain Drake and his crew could only focus on one goal, buying the time humanity needed to unleash its true answer to the Armada's invasion. Beneath the endless stretches of sand in the Nevada desert, far from the chaos unfolding in the skies. Above, an unmarked facility sat buried under layers of rock and reinforced steel. To the outside world, it didn't exist. To those who knew, it was called Project Guardian. The heart of humanity's most dangerous and most secret weapon, Dr. Lena Roberts stood in the main control chamber, her hands resting on the console as alarms flashed in red all around her. The air was filled with the low hum of massive generators, deep and steady like the heartbeat of some sleeping giant. She had been waiting for this day for years, though. She had hoped it would never come on the central display. Feed from orbital satellites showed the alien armada closing its grip on Earth. Every ship a dagger pointed at the planet. Dr. Roberts' eyes narrowed. She turned to her team. Engineers and scientists who had been sworn to secrecy for decades, bring Guardian online, she said simply. Her voice steady despite the urgency, massive. Banks of capacitors began to charge, glowing with a faint blue light, deep underground. A network of superconductive tunnels carried the growing energy into the Guardian's central core. The project had been built using technology scavenged from alien wreckage found in remote corners of the solar system years ago. Pieces of metal and crystal that didn't match anything humanity could produce, analyzed and reverse-engineered in secret labs above ground. Captain Nathan Drake aboard the USS Liberty received a coded transmission from the desert facility. The message was short: Guardian will be ready in 5 minutes. He felt a chill run through him, not of fear, but of awe. He had only heard rumors of the project. Stories whispered among senior officers about a weapon so powerful it could wipe out fleets in seconds. Now it was about to become real. In the Nevada control chamber, Technicians monitored every gauge and screen. Numbers climbed higher. The hum of the generators deepened outside the atmosphere. The alien vanguard pressed forward, confident in their overwhelming strength, but they had no idea what they were walking into. "Target the lead ships in the upper orbit formation," Dr. Roberts ordered. Her hands flying across the console. Guardian's targeting systems locked onto the enemy flagship and its nearest escorts. Arcs of energy began to build inside the core, the light growing brighter until the entire chamber seemed bathed in electric blue. Far above, on the Liberty's sensors, Lieutenant Aaron Sullivan saw the first spike of Guardian's energy signature. Her eyes widened. "Captain, it's charging whatever it is. It's huge," she said. Drake only nodded. "Then let's give it a clear shot." He ordered the Liberty and the fighter squadrons to pull enemy ships into a tight formation. Drawing them into range, in the desert, the moment came. "Fire," Dr. Roberts said. Guardian roared to life with a soundless pulse that flashed across the sky like lightning without thunder. In orbit, the beam struck the alien flagship with pinpoint precision. The ship didn't explode. In fire, it simply came apart, metal vaporizing. In an instant, its escorts followed, their massive holes torn open as if sliced by an invisible blade. Gasps and cheers filled the Nevada chamber. But Dr. Roberts didn't smile. "Recharge for next volley," she said. She knew this was only the beginning. They had revealed their hand. And the Armada would now realize humanity was not as weak as they had believed. On the Liberty, the bridge crew watched the devastation unfold in stunned silence. Massive warships reduced to debris fields in seconds. Commander O'Neill's voice came over. "Comes low, but certain they're going to remember this day." And deep down, everyone knew he was right. For the first time since the invasion began, the galaxy's predators had tasted fear in the cold black above Earth. The wreckage of the alien flagship still drifted, glowing faintly from the heat of Guardian's strike. For a brief moment, the massive Imperial Armada hesitated. Their perfect formation broken, their confidence shaken in that single hesitation. Captain Nathan Drake saw his chance. "Push forward," he ordered, his voice cutting through the tension on the USS Liberty's bridge. The crew moved as one, thrusters ignited, and the Liberty surged ahead, weaving between the burning remains of enemy cruisers. The ship's railguns thundered, sending hypervelocity slugs into the exposed flanks of the next line of alien warships. From the fighter bay, Commander Ryan O'Neill's squadrons cut through the void like shards of light, their sleek frames darting around enemy plasma fire. Each fighter pilot knew exactly where to aim at the narrow seams in the alien armor that couldn't withstand repeated hits. Missiles streaked across the darkness, striking those weak points with brutal precision. One alien carrier erupted into a ball of flames so bright it lit up the Liberty's hull in orange and gold. On the alien side, chaos began to ripple through their fleet. The loss of their command vessel and multiple cruisers had thrown them off balance. Captains barked orders in languages no human could speak, their voices tight with frustration. They had expected Earth to fold within minutes. "Not to fight like a cornered predator. Guardian is recharging," Lieutenant Aaron Sullivan reported. Her eyes locked on the tactical display. "We'll have another shot in 3 minutes," Captain Drake nodded. "Then let's make sure those 3 minutes count." He ordered the Liberty to flank the enemy's forward line. Drawing their attention away from the weapon on the ground, Admiral Jack Carter, monitoring from Fleet Command, saw the opening as well. All units pressed the counteroffensive. His voice came over the comms. Calm, but with an edge of steel. Human destroyers and frigates moved in tight formations, darting between alien fire, hammering the invaders with coordinated volleys. The sky above Earth became a storm of light and explosions. Commander O'Neill's voice came through the fighter channel. "Watch for their heavy cruisers. They're trying to pin us." He banked hard to the right, dodging a beam that sliced past his wing. then looped around and dropped a payload of micromissiles into the enemy ship's exposed vent arrays. The explosion rippled down its spine, splitting the vessel apart from the Liberty's bridge. Captain Drake saw alien ships starting to pull back into a tighter defensive formation. But it was too late. The humans had already broken their rhythm. Every second they fought was another second Guardian's energy built to lethal levels again. "Captain," Sullivan said, a flicker of excitement in her usually calm voice, "we're pushing them into crossfire range." Drake smiled faintly. "Good. Let them feel trapped in that moment." Earth's defenders weren't just holding the line, they were pushing the Armada back. Step by step, blast by blast. In the cold void of space, humanity was proving it would not just survive. It would win, and the Imperial Armada, once feared across the galaxy, was about to learn that the fight they had started would end in their own destruction. Admiral Jack Carter leaned over the glowing tactical table in the Fleet Command Center, his eyes fixed on the swirling map of red and blue markers. The alien ships still outnumbered humanity's fleet by an overwhelming margin, but their formation was broken now, fractured by Guardian's devastating strikes and the relentless push of the Liberty and her escorts. This was the moment to close the trap. "Signal all fleets," Carter said, his voice steady but carrying a weight that made the room fall silent. "We draw them in, make them think we're falling back." The order went out instantly, and across Earth's defense network, human ships began a controlled retreat, shields flickering as they pulled away from the front lines. To the aliens, it looked like weakness, the perfect opening to finish their attack. In the void, the Imperial Armada reacted exactly as Carter had predicted. Their warships surged forward, eager to crush what they saw as a collapsing defense. Their formation stretched as the faster assault cruisers outpaced the heavier carriers. Hungry for the kill, they didn't realize they were sailing into the jaws of something far deadlier. On the USS Liberty, Captain Nathan Drake kept his tone even as he issued orders. Maintain the illusion, pull back just enough to make them chase. His crew understood. Their ship's engines glowed a dull blue as they drifted in retreat. All the while keeping weapons locked and ready, fighter squadrons flew in defensive spirals, returning just enough fire to keep the aliens focused on pursuit beneath the sands of Nevada, deep inside the Guardian control chamber. Dr. Lena Roberts watched her targeting grid fill with red. The enemy was pouring into the exact coordinates Carter had calculated. "They're in the zone," one of her technicians reported. She gave a single nod. "Charge to maximum output." The hum of the generators deepened. The light from the core grew almost blinding. The air itself seemed to vibrate. Back in orbit, the aliens pressed deeper, their lead ships now directly over the designated kill zone, still unaware. Their comms buzzed with confident orders and predictions of Earth's imminent fall. Then, in the space of a heartbeat, the trap closed. "All units, reverse course and fire everything." Carter's command cut through the comm channels like a thunderclap. Human ships spun on their axes, railguns and missile batteries roaring to life from the Liberty's bridge. Drake gave the order to unleash a full broadside. The sky lit with streaks of kinetic slugs and searing plasma bolts. At the same moment, Guardian fired. A concentrated beam of blue-white energy lanced up from the desert and split into multiple streams mid-flight, each one striking a different enemy ship. The effect was instantaneous. Hulls vaporized. Reactors went critical, and entire cruisers simply ceased to exist. The lead ships that had driven into the zone were gone in seconds. Panic rippled through the alien ranks. Intercepted transmissions revealed the shock in their voices. Disbelief that their superior numbers had become a liability. Some captains ordered retreats, others tried to regroup, but the battlefield was no longer theirs to control from the Liberty. Lieutenant Aaron Sullivan watched the tactical map shift from red dominance to a scattering of broken signals. "They're breaking," she said, her voice carrying both relief and grim satisfaction. Captain Drake didn't celebrate yet. "Good, now we finish this," he replied. "Because, in war, you didn't let your enemy breathe once you had them gasping, and in that moment, the Imperial Armada was suffocating." The void above Earth was no longer a battlefield of equals, it had become a hunting ground. And the hunters were human. The once proud Imperial Armada was now a scattering of wounded beasts. Drifting and desperate, their tight formations shattered. Their command chain gone, every move they made was defensive. Every shot they fired was rushed on the USS Liberty's bridge. Captain Nathan Drake stood with his hands braced against the railing, his eyes locked on the shifting icons of the enemy fleet. "We go straight for their heart," he said, his voice calm but burning with resolve. No pauses, no mercy. The order was met with a wave of focused determination from the crew. The Liberty's massive engines flared to life, propelling the warship into the thickest part of the remaining alien forces. Railguns thundered with a deep, rhythmic beat, their hypervelocity rounds tearing through enemy hulls like paper. Plasma batteries spat arcs of molten fire into the void, each impact breaking another piece of the invaders' will. Above and around them, Commander Ryan O'Neill's fighter squadrons swept in and out of the chaos. Their craft moving so fast, they seemed to blink in and out of existence. They chased down crippled enemy frigates, disabling engines, forcing pilots to eject, and hunting escape shuttles before they could flee into the darkness. O'Neill's voice rang over the comms, sharp and precise. "Don't give them a chance to regroup, make every shot count." Beneath Nevada's desert, the Guardian control chamber was alive with power. Dr. Lena Roberts stood bathed in the glow of the core as it reached full charge once again. "Target clusters on the far edge of the blockade," she ordered. Beams of blue-white energy lanced upward, striking with such precision that entire pockets of the alien fleet simply vanished. The sheer scale of destruction was something no alien commander had ever faced from a so-called primitive world. The surviving Armada ships began to scatter, some breaking for the edges of the solar system, others desperately trying to hide behind the wreckage of their fallen comrades, but humanity had the momentum now. Smaller human frigates chased the fleeing ships, their torpedoes locking onto heat signatures, detonations lighting the blackness like distant fireworks on the Liberty's bridge. Lieutenant Aaron Sullivan reported, "Enemy vessels down to less than 20% operational capacity." Her tone was measured, but there was a glint in her eyes. They had started this day facing impossible odds, and now they were on the verge of erasing the enemy fleet from existence. Dr. Roberts' voice came over the comms. "Guardian at maximum. Output ready to fire again." Captain Drake didn't hesitate. "Do it, and once more." The heavens flashed as beams of unimaginable energy cut through the fleeing enemy ships, shredding their last hopes of escape. Within 30 minutes, the once unstoppable blockade that had threatened to enslave Earth was gone. All that remained were drifting wrecks, shattered hulls, and the faint fading echoes of an enemy that had underestimated humanity's resolve. As the Liberty slowed to a steady orbit above the planet, Drake exhaled for the first time in hours, his voice low but certain. "It's over for now." But in the silence that followed, every soldier, every pilot, and every commander knew the truth the galaxy had just learned, that Earth would never kneel. And that was a lesson the stars would not soon forget. The battle was over, but the silence it left behind was heavy. Wreckage drifted like ghosts in the black void above Earth, pieces of alien warships spinning slowly, reflecting the pale light of the sun. Rescue shuttles moved among the debris, not to recover their own, but to gather the surviving members of the Imperial Armada who had been forced to eject or abandon their vessels. The war was won, but its aftermath was only just beginning. On the ground, the world waited, every major city glued to news broadcasts, every person holding their breath for the words they had been praying to hear. In Washington, President Claire Benson stood before the cameras, flanked by her military advisors. Her voice was steady, carrying across the airwaves and into every home. Today, humanity stood against an empire that believed we were weak. She said, they thought we would bow. Instead, we fought and we won. Her words were simple, but they struck deep. In the Fleet Command Center, Admiral Jack Carter was already working through the post-battle reports. Though the victory was decisive, he knew it had not come without cost. Several human ships had been lost, and many more had taken heavy damage. Still, given the scale of the invasion, the survival of Earth's fleet was nothing short of miraculous. Down in the Nevada desert, Dr. Lena Roberts finally stepped back from Guardian's control console. The hum of the massive weapon winding down, her team exchanged tired smiles. But she knew this was not the time for celebration. We used only a fraction of Guardian's full potential, she admitted to one of her engineers, but now they know it exists. And they'll come prepared next time, back aboard the USS Liberty. Captain Nathan Drake stood on the observation deck, watching the sunlight gleam across the wreckage fields. His crew moved through the corridors with a quiet pride, some laughing, others sitting in silence, absorbing the reality of what they had survived. Drake knew that this day would be remembered, not just as a battle, but as the moment Earth proved it belonged among the great powers of the galaxy. When Admiral Carter addressed the world later that evening, he revealed what had been kept secret. For decades, that Project Guardian was not the end of humanity's hidden preparations, but only the beginning. There were other systems, other weapons, other ships still in development. We will never be caught unprepared again, he said, his voice carrying the weight of promise. Dr. Roberts' final report hinted at something even more unsettling. She explained that the alien technology used to create Guardian had not been salvaged from random wreckage, but recovered from a single, massive craft found far beyond Pluto decades earlier. A craft with markings from an empire older and more dangerous than the Armada they had just defeated. She didn't share that with the public. But Carter and Drake knew today's victory was not the end of Earth's fight for survival. It was only the first chapter, and somewhere in the cold, endless dark between the stars, other civilizations had seen what had happened here. Some would fear Earth, some would hate it, and some would come looking for it in the weeks that followed. The skies above Earth were no longer a place of fear, but of wonder. The wreckage of the Imperial Armada still floated in high orbit. Shimmering like a broken crown around the planet, salvage crews worked day and night, pulling in twisted fragments of alien hull plating, shattered weapon systems, and entire escape pods that had failed to deploy. What had once been a symbol of domination was now a treasure trove of knowledge and resources. Every recovered piece was cataloged and shipped to research facilities around the world. Engineers in hidden labs carefully dismantled alien reactors, studying their cores. Scientists tested armor composites that could withstand impacts no human metal could survive. From the wreckage came hundreds of breakthroughs, advances in propulsion, shielding, and weaponry that would have taken humanity centuries to discover. On its own, the USS Liberty returned to Earth a hero ship. Her hull scarred, but her spirit unbroken. Crowds gathered in every port the vessel docked at, waving flags and holding up signs. Pilots and crew walked down the gangways to cheers, their names already written into the pages of history. Captain Nathan Drake and Commander Ryan O'Neill were invited to speak before the United Earth Council, where their accounts of the battle were met with both pride and quiet astonishment. In Nevada, Dr. Lena Roberts stood in Guardian's silent control chamber, the once blazing core now dim. She ran her hand along the rail, knowing the weapon's time would come again. Her team continued to refine its systems, making it faster, more precise, and even deadlier. The thought of its next use didn't fill her with excitement, but with a cold readiness. President Claire Benson addressed the planet in a global broadcast, her words carrying a new tone, not one of desperation, but of defiance. "We will not wait for the galaxy to bring war to our doorstep again." She declared, "From this day forward, we will carry our strength into the stars." The statement was met with a wave of resolve across nations. Old rivalries seemed smaller now, replaced by a shared purpose, but in the quiet moments behind closed doors, Admiral Jack Carter and Captain Drake discussed the truth they had both been avoiding in public. Humanity's sudden rise in power would not go unnoticed. There were other empires out there, stronger than the Armada, watching and calculating, and while some might stay away, others would come, still. For the first time in history, humanity faced the future not as prey, but as a force that could not be easily broken. The galaxy had seen Earth stand against an empire and win in minutes, and that single fact had changed everything. Whatever came next, the stars would never look at humanity the same way again.